Hello. So I'm Yngve, and I'll be teaching INF200 this year. So in INF200 we will learn programming, and we'll take you from creating one-off scripts that you run once and actually custom make for your very specific application now, and then you throw it away, and take you to a level where you can create new libraries for other people to use, and where you can create software that other people can use. So to do that, we're gonna need a lot of tools, because once you get started programming at a certain level, it's not just the code that you make that matters, but everything around it. And we're going to teach you all of that, or most of that, in this course. So we will not use Canvas. Instead, we're using GitHub, and I will post information on the GitHub pages. So that's this URL that I have got here, the yngvem.github.io/inf200 and you need to capitalize the inf200 part. And we're using the GitHub pages for this because we're going to use GitHub extensively in this course, in this module. And before we talk about GitHub, we need to talk a bit about Git. So here I have the web page for Git, and Git is what's called a version control system. And that means that you can track changes to your code using Git. So imagine that you have a piece of software and it's working, and now you want to add a new feature to this software. So you make modifications to enable that, and suddenly your software stops working. What can you do to sort that out? Well, you might have several versions of the code in separate folders, and that just gets messy and you don't have control. With a version control system such as Git, you will have control over the code, and you can just simply go back in time to an earlier version. And you can even have multiple versions at the same time and switch between them. So if you are developing a experimental feature and you can do that, and then suddenly find a bug in the original code that people are using right now, then you can change to that other version of the code and release that. So all of this might sound abstract and weird right now, but during this course you will slowly but surely get used to Git, and hopefully be at a place where you're comfortable using Git. And believe me, knowing Git can help you, can definitely help you get an internship during the summer. It's very useful. It's used in most companies, and it's something that not all engineering students learn. So keep this in mind. It's something everyone uses in the real world, but not nearly enough use it in academia. Okay, so back to GitHub. With Git you have a local version of your program, and you can change between versions, go back in time, etc., etc. Now, say you want to scale this up and you want to collaborate. Now you can't have everything on just your local machine. You need to share it. And a way to share code is to use GitHub. So GitHub works as it keeps track of your code online as well. So you will download the code, make changes to it, and upload it to GitHub. And that's how GitHub works. And we're using GitHub here to host the lecture material, to host the documentation, and to host the exercises. And you'll use it to hand in weekly coursework as well. So on this page, this is the main repo, and here you will find the lecture notes once I put those up, There will come a new folder here with the name lecture notes or lectures, but we'll leave that for now. What we're going to look at is how you can create lecture, how you will answer the mandatory coursework. So I will do part 1 of the first mandatory coursework with you in this video, and then in the next video I'll do part 2 of the mandatory coursework, and in a third video I will show you how to upload the mandatory coursework and hand it in. Okay, so we start by cloning. So now we have this web page here, and this is mine, the lecture's version of the exercises. And for now, I only have the first two exercises posted here, and I'll add more later. But you want to have a copy of this yourself. So then you go to this, you press this clone or download button here, and you copy this. So you can press this button here and just mark this and press Ctrl+C. And now we go to Gitkraken now. And we want to clone a repo. There's a big button here, clone a repo, or we can press here, File, Clone Repo. It's exactly the same. So I'm just gonna press here, and I have a helper that will help me clone a repository. So now I browse, I go to programming and say tests INF200. So I created that, and this is where I want to keep the coursework. So then I paste this URL here, and it will now download everything to my local machine. Press this clone the repo button here. So it will clone the repository. Here, successfully cloned repo, and press this open now button. If that open now button doesn't show up, you can always just press open repo, open a repository, and then you can navigate to wherever you saved a test, and here we have it. This is the repository. So you open that, and here we have a sort of a new screen. You haven't seen this before. Later I will talk you through what everything on this screen means, but for now we're gonna change the remote. So remember how we cloned from like the course exercises repository, and how Git is supposed to be that you download a local version and then you upload to GitHub. Now you don't have access to the course GitHub repository, so you will have to create your own repository where you put all of this. So hopefully you've created a GitHub user following Daniel's guide, which you should have seen before this. And then once you log into GitHub, you will have this page here. So you can create a repository, and then we want the repository name to be the same as the name that I use for the class exercises repository. So keep this name, and then you can decide whether or not you want other people to have access to your repository. You're fully allowed to make it public if you want to, but you can also make it private if you enjoy privacy and you don't want anyone to see your mandatory coursework. So then I press this create repo. I didn't change any other defaults, just create repository, and then I copy this URL we see here, right? And then I go back to Git Kraken, and on origin I remove origin. So I right click here, right click on origin and remove origin. If you don't see it, it's probably because don't mind me. So I removed the origin. Now we need to add a new remote. So now we call this origin. I know this is kind of weird, but this is what you have to do. And then we add the remote like this. So what now you've told Git Kraken where you want to upload your code. And you've told it that, hey, I want to upload it on my personal repository, not the class repo. So if we can do that once more, we can delete this, remove origin, add origin, and this URL here, make sure that this is your GitHub username right there. It's test INF200, that's my username. And now I can press this push button. And that will upload it, but so it knows where to upload it, but it doesn't know which name to give it. So we'll talk about branches in the next video, but for now just keep this leave master here and just submit. And now it's pushing. See, it's working. Pushed successfully, it says here. So we can go back to your repository and press Ctrl R, and here you see it's the exact same code as we have here. So that was it for the first video. Now you know how to create a new GitHub repository, you know how to clone a remote GitHub repository, and you know how to change the name of a GitHub repository. So if you've never used Git before, you can leave it here. You can just quit this video. I'm just going to talk a bit about forking and why we're not using that, but that's not a part of this course. So that's bonus for those of you who are interested. So on GitHub we have this fork button, and what that means is, hey, I want to make a copy of this repository. And the reason we're not forking is that if you fork a public repository, you cannot make it private. And therefore we have to fork it. Therefore we cannot fork it, I mean. And that's why we had to create our own repo manually and change the origin. So that's it for now, and you should watch the next video to figure out how to actually do the coursework.